The rain began just before sunrise. Not with thunder, not with heavy clouds, only a gentle shower that settled quietly over the old rose garden, covering every leaf and flower with tiny crystal drops that shimmered in the soft morning light. Beyond a winding stone path stood an elegant glass greenhouse. Its tall windows stretched from the ground to the curved roof, each pane framed with weathered white wood that had stood faithfully through countless seasons. From a distance, the greenhouse seemed almost to glow. Warm golden light shone softly through the rain-covered glass, making the quiet garden feel even more inviting. Around it, hundreds of roses bloomed in peaceful harmony. Cream-colored roses, soft pink roses, deep red climbing roses, delicate peach blossoms, and tiny white roses that nodded gently whenever the breeze wandered through the garden. The air carried their fragrance everywhere, sweet, fresh, comforting. It was the kind of scent that invited people to slow their footsteps without even realizing why. Inside the greenhouse, morning had already begun. A small fire crackled quietly inside an old cast-iron stove. Its gentle warmth drifted through the room, keeping the cool rain safely outside the glass walls. Rows of wooden shelves held clay pots overflowing with herbs: lavender, rosemary, mint, chamomile, lemon balm. Each plant seemed perfectly content beneath the soft morning light filtering through the glass ceiling. A long oak table rested in the center of the greenhouse. On it stood a white porcelain teapot, 3 delicate teacups, a basket of warm honey scones covered by a linen cloth, and a small vase holding freshly picked roses. Everything waited patiently, as though it already knew someone would arrive. The caretaker of the greenhouse was a gentle woman named Clara. She had silver hair gathered into a loose braid and wore a soft green apron with tiny embroidered flowers along the edges. Every morning, she greeted each plant before beginning her work. She believed flowers deserved a kind word just as much as people did. "Good morning," she whispered to the roses. "I hope the rain makes you happy today." Tiny droplets slipped from the petals, as though quietly answering her. Clara smiled. "I'll take that as a yes." She lit 3 beeswax candles beside the reading corner. Always 3, never more, never less. Once, someone had asked why. She simply smiled. 3 little lights make even rainy mornings feel warm. The answer seemed complete enough. No one ever asked again. In one corner of the greenhouse stood a large wooden rocking chair beside the stove. A knitted blanket rested across its back. Nearby, a small bookshelf held only a few dozen books: gardening journals, nature stories, poetry, travel diaries. None of them looked new. Each had been opened so many times that their pages curled gently at the edges. Clara often said, "The best books are the ones that remember their readers." Outside, rain continued tapping softly upon the glass roof. The sound wasn't loud. Instead, it became part of the greenhouse itself, like quiet music, like slow breathing, like the gentle rhythm of a peaceful morning. Small birds landed among the rose bushes before hopping happily through the wet grass. A robin perched upon the stone fountain at the center of the garden. 2 butterflies rested beneath broad green leaves, patiently waiting for the rain to end. Nothing hurried. Nothing needed attention. The whole garden seemed perfectly content, simply existing. A narrow wooden gate stood at the far end of the rose path. It opened with the softest creak. A lone traveler stepped quietly into the garden. He carried a small canvas satchel and wore a light brown raincoat dotted with tiny raindrops. For a long moment, he said nothing. He simply stood beneath the gentle rain, looking towards the glowing greenhouse. Warm candlelight flickered behind the rain-speckled glass. Steam curled gently from the teapot waiting upon the oak table. The fire glowed peacefully beside the rocking chair. The traveler smiled. It had been a long journey, but somehow, before he had even opened the greenhouse door, he already felt as though he had arrived exactly where he was meant to be. The traveler paused beneath the little stone archway for just a moment. Rain continued to fall softly around him. Tiny droplets gathered upon the brim of his hat before quietly slipping to the cobblestones below. He took a slow breath. The fragrance of fresh roses filled the cool morning air. There was lavender too, a hint of mint, and somewhere nearby, the comforting aroma of warm bread fresh from the oven. He smiled without realizing it. Some places seemed to welcome visitors long before anyone spoke. He reached for the polished brass handle. The greenhouse door opened with the gentlest whisper. Warmth drifted toward him immediately, not overwhelming, just enough to chase away the coolness of the rainy morning. The scent inside was different from the garden. Fresh herbs, old wood, chamomile tea, and the faint sweetness of beeswax candles glowing on the shelves. The traveler quietly closed the door behind him. Almost instantly, the rain became softer. Still present, still beautiful, but now it sounded like a peaceful melody playing upon the glass roof above. Clara looked up from the little watering can she had been using. A gentle smile appeared beneath her silver hair. "Good morning. I hope the rain treated you kindly." The traveler removed his hat. "It did. It simply encouraged me to walk a little more slowly." Clara laughed softly. The rain often gives wise advice. She placed the watering can beside a row of blooming jasmine. Without asking another question, she poured a cup of warm herbal tea. Steam rose gently into the air. Chamomile, honey, a single sprig of fresh mint. She placed the cup upon the oak table. "I thought someone might arrive this morning." The traveler looked at the waiting teacup. "You were expecting me?" Clara shook her head. "No, I simply believe every rainy morning deserves an extra cup of tea." He wrapped both hands around the warm porcelain cup. The heat slowly spread through his fingers. Outside, raindrops continued sliding down the tall glass walls. Beyond them, the roses swayed gently in the breeze. Inside, the cast-iron stove crackled softly. Its orange glow danced across rows of clay flower pots. The traveler noticed something unusual. Every flower pot carried a tiny handwritten name. Not the names of flowers, names like hope, patience, morning, quiet, kindness. He looked toward Clara. "Those aren't flower names." She smiled while gently trimming a lavender stem. "No, they're reminders." She picked up a small pot filled with tiny white blossoms. "This one is called Peace." She gently touched one delicate flower. "I planted it on a rainy morning very much like this one." The traveler smiled. "And does naming them make a difference?" Clara thought for a moment. "I don't know, but I care for them more carefully, and perhaps they return the kindness." Near the stove stood a small wooden shelf. Instead of books, it held dozens of tiny glass bottles. Each contained something collected from the garden: rose petals, lavender buds, dried chamomile flowers, tiny pine cones, fresh rosemary. A little handwritten label rested beneath each bottle. The scent of early summer. After the first rain, morning lavender. The traveler picked up one tiny bottle. Inside, only a few dried rose petals remained. He opened the cork very carefully. Even after all this time, the gentle fragrance was still there. "It smells like the garden." Clara nodded. Some beautiful things never completely disappear. Outside, the rain slowly became lighter. A robin landed upon the windowsill. It tilted its tiny head as though curiously watching everyone inside. For several quiet moments, no one spoke. The bird remained perfectly still. Then, with one cheerful song, it flew gracefully toward the old stone fountain. The traveler smiled. "I think that may be the happiest sound I've heard in weeks." Clara looked toward the garden. Every morning begins with a bird reminding the flowers that the sun is still waiting behind the clouds. The traveler looked out through the rain-covered glass. For the first time in many days, he felt no need to hurry anywhere. The greenhouse, the flowers, the gentle rain, and the warm cup of tea had quietly convinced him that perhaps the best mornings are the ones that begin very slowly. The rain continued its gentle rhythm upon the glass roof. Not quite a song, not quite silence. Just a peaceful sound that seemed to belong to the greenhouse itself. Every tiny drop found its own path down the curved panes of glass, joining another before slipping quietly toward the flower beds outside. The traveler remained beside the warm stove. His cup of herbal tea was still pleasantly warm. He wasn't trying to finish it. He had already discovered that nothing inside the greenhouse asked to be hurried. Clara slowly walked toward one of the tallest rose bushes. Its blossoms were a soft shade of cream, each petal edged with tiny diamonds of rain. She gently removed a single faded bloom. The traveler watched with curiosity. "I thought every flower should stay." Clara smiled. "So did I, many years ago." She held the little blossom in her hand. But gardens teach us something very gentle. Making room is also a way of caring. She placed the faded rose into a small wicker basket. It gave us many beautiful mornings. Now it quietly makes room for another. The traveler nodded thoughtfully. Outside, fresh buds already waited among the green leaves, tiny, patient, ready for their own season. Near the far window stood a long wooden workbench. Upon it rested little gardening tools, neatly arranged in perfect order. Copper watering cans, small clay pots, bundles of twine, tiny wooden labels, and an old leather notebook whose pages had turned golden with time. Clara carefully opened it. Every page held only a few handwritten lines. March 12th. The first lavender opened this morning. April 7th. A robin built another nest above the north window. May 18th. The roses smelled sweetest after today's gentle rain. The traveler smiled. "You've written in this for years." She nodded softly. "I don't record important events. I record peaceful ones." A little breeze wandered through the slightly opened window. It carried the scent of wet grass and fresh roses into the room. The candles flickered gently. The hanging vines swayed almost too slowly to notice. Above them, tiny glass wind chimes caught the breeze. Instead of loud ringing, they produced the softest crystal notes, delicate, gentle, almost like little drops of music floating through the air. The traveler closed his eyes. "I've never heard wind sound so peaceful," Clara whispered. "The greenhouse likes to sing when the breeze visits." At the center of the room stood a round wooden table covered with flower petals, not scattered carelessly, carefully arranged into simple circles: pink, white, peach, cream. The traveler looked closer. Each circle surrounded a tiny candle. "Do you decorate the table every morning?" Clara nodded. "It reminds me that beauty doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes, a few flowers are enough." Outside, the rain finally began to slow. Sunlight quietly slipped through the thinning clouds. Golden beams passed through the glass roof, filling the greenhouse with warm light. Every raindrop suddenly sparkled. Thousands of tiny reflections danced across the wooden floor. The traveler looked around in amazement. "It feels as though the whole room is glowing." Clara smiled. "I always love this moment. The rain washes everything clean, and then the sunlight thanks it." Just beyond the greenhouse, a narrow stone path disappeared beneath climbing roses. The traveler noticed a tiny wooden sign he hadn't seen before. It simply read, "Morning Walk." An arrow pointed gently toward the far end of the garden. He looked toward Clara. "Where does it lead?" She poured one last cup of warm chamomile tea before answering. "To my favorite place in the whole garden. A quiet little pond where white swans arrive every morning just after the rain has ended." The little wooden sign pointed quietly toward a narrow garden path. Its weathered letters had softened over the years, as though countless gentle rains had slowly polished the wood. The traveler looked beyond the roses. The path disappeared beneath a graceful arch covered in climbing jasmine. Tiny white blossoms still held delicate drops of rain upon their petals. Clara smiled. "The swans will be waiting. They're always patient." They stepped onto the winding stone path. The garden felt wonderfully peaceful after the rain. Every leaf sparkled beneath the returning sunlight. The air smelled fresh: roses, lavender, wet earth, and somewhere nearby, the gentle fragrance of blooming jasmine drifted softly through the breeze. Neither of them hurried. Every few moments they paused, sometimes to admire a flower, sometimes to listen to a bird, sometimes for no reason at all. The traveler realized he hadn't looked at a clock since entering the greenhouse. Surprisingly, he didn't miss it. A tiny robin landed upon the stone wall beside them. It carried a small piece of moss in its beak. For a moment, it simply watched the two quiet walkers. Then it fluttered away toward an old oak tree hidden deeper within the garden. Clara smiled. "I think it's building another nest. It chooses a different branch every spring." The traveler laughed softly. "Perhaps it enjoys a fresh view." "Perhaps," Clara replied. "Or perhaps it simply trusts that every corner of the garden feels like home." The path curved gently around a bed of lavender. Hundreds of tiny purple flowers swayed together in the light breeze. Bees drifted lazily from blossom to blossom. Their gentle humming blended beautifully with birdsong echoing through the trees. The traveler stopped for a moment. "I've never noticed how peaceful bees sound." Clara looked toward the flowers. "They're never in a hurry. They simply move from one blossom to the next, one small moment at a time." Soon, the path became shaded beneath tall willow trees. Their long green branches swayed softly overhead, brushing against one another with the quietest whisper. Tiny beams of sunlight filtered through the leaves. They danced gently across the stones beneath their feet. The traveler looked upward. "It feels cooler here." Clara nodded. The willow trees keep this part of the garden comfortable even on warm afternoons. They've been protecting this path longer than I've been alive. Ahead, the sound of gently moving water reached them, not rushing, not splashing, just the peaceful murmur of a quiet pond breathing beneath the morning sky. As they rounded the final bend, the garden opened into a small clearing. There it was, a perfectly still pond surrounded by smooth white stones and flowering water lilies. The surface reflected the blue sky so clearly that it almost looked like another world beneath the water. Near the edge, two graceful white swans floated side by side. Neither seemed disturbed by the visitors. They simply glided slowly across the pond, leaving delicate ripples that spread quietly toward the shore. The traveler smiled. "They're beautiful," Clara whispered. "They visited every morning for nearly 12 years. I've never learned where they come from, and somehow I've never needed to know." A little wooden bench overlooked the pond. Its smooth oak seat had been gently polished by years of peaceful mornings. Clara placed the wicker basket beside it. Inside, she had packed 2 warm blueberry muffins wrapped in linen, another small teapot, fresh chamomile tea, and a tiny jar of wildflower honey. The traveler laughed quietly. "I think you can turn any place into a tea room." Clara smiled. "I don't. The garden does. I simply remember to bring the tea." For a long while, neither of them spoke. They watched the swans drift slowly among the lilies. Dragonflies hovered above the water. A butterfly landed gently on a blooming white rose nearby before lifting gracefully back into the morning air. The world felt perfectly balanced. The traveler took a slow sip of tea. Warm sunlight rested gently upon his face. The soft breeze carried the scent of flowers across the pond. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he noticed something just beyond the willow trees. Half hidden beneath climbing ivy, a tiny wooden gazebo stood quietly at the edge of the garden. Its roof was covered with flowering vines. Tiny lanterns still hung beneath the beams, even though daylight had already arrived. The traveler looked toward Clara. "Has that little gazebo always been there?" She smiled knowingly. "Yes, and this afternoon, when the roses begin to bloom a little wider, I'll show you why everyone who visits the garden falls in love with that quiet little place."
The little gazebo stood quietly beneath a canopy of climbing roses. From where they sat beside the pond, it looked almost like something from an old painting. Its white wooden pillars were wrapped in flowering vines. Soft pink roses climbed all the way to the curved roof. Tiny glass lanterns hung beneath the beams, catching the warm afternoon sunlight and scattering warm little reflections across the wooden floor. The traveler looked toward it with quiet curiosity. "It feels as though it's been waiting for someone." Clara smiled. "I've always believed peaceful places are very patient. They never mind how long it takes for someone to find them." After finishing their tea, they folded the little linen cloth. The empty teacups returned to the wicker basket. The swans drifted slowly toward the far end of the pond, disappearing beneath graceful willow branches. Not because they were leaving, only because another peaceful corner of the pond had called to them. The traveler watched them until the last gentle ripple faded into the still water. "I don't think I've ever seen anything move so calmly." Clara nodded. "They're never trying to arrive. They're simply enjoying the journey." The narrow path leading to the gazebo was lined with tiny white daisies. Butterflies floated lazily from flower to flower. A warm breeze wandered through the rose garden, carrying the sweet fragrance of blossoms in every direction. Somewhere nearby, a wind chime softly greeted the afternoon. Its delicate notes blended with birdsong until it became impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. When they reached the gazebo, the traveler noticed something unusual. There were no walls, only open arches looking out across the entire garden. From one side, he could see the greenhouse glowing softly beneath the afternoon sun. From another, the quiet pond shimmered between the willow trees. Beyond the roses, the distant hills rested peacefully beneath slow-moving clouds. "It feels as though the whole garden meets here," he whispered. Clara smiled. That's exactly why it was built. At the very center of the gazebo stood a beautifully polished round table. Its surface held a single glass vase. Inside, one fresh white rose, nothing more. The traveler looked around. No decorations? Clara gently adjusted the flower. The garden already provides everything else. Beside the table rested a beautifully crafted wooden music stand. Upon it lay several sheets of handwritten music. No piano, no violin, no instruments at all. Only quiet pages waiting in the gentle breeze. The traveler looked puzzled. Who plays this music? Clara laughed softly. Sometimes, no one. The pages simply enjoy resting here. He smiled. I think that's the most peaceful answer I've ever heard. Near one of the wooden pillars stood an old brass telescope, smaller than the one in the greenhouse. Its polished surface reflected the afternoon sunlight. Clara looked through it for a moment before stepping aside. Have a look. The traveler carefully placed his eye against the lens. Far beyond the garden, rolling green hills stretched peacefully toward the horizon. A narrow stream sparkled beneath the sunlight. Tiny sheep wandered slowly across distant meadows. Smoke curled gently from the chimney of a small stone cottage hidden among wildflowers. Everything looked wonderfully quiet. It feels as though the whole countryside is taking an afternoon nap. Clara smiled. Perhaps it is. A robin landed upon the edge of the gazebo. Moments later, another joined it, then another. Within minutes, several tiny birds rested peacefully along the wooden railing. None seemed frightened. They chirped softly to one another before fluttering down to collect tiny seeds Clara had scattered earlier that morning. You feed them every day? She nodded. They've become old friends. They remind me that kindness grows stronger when it becomes a habit. The afternoon drifted gently onward. Golden sunlight filled the rose garden. The greenhouse windows shimmered like crystal. The pond reflected drifting clouds. The gazebo stood quietly in the center of it all, a peaceful place where time seemed wonderfully unimportant. The traveler leaned back against the smooth wooden bench. He closed his eyes. The breeze carried roses. The birds sang softly. The wind chimes whispered above. And somewhere in the distance, the old greenhouse door gently opened, as though another quiet visitor had just arrived, looking for nothing more than a peaceful place to rest. The gentle sound of the greenhouse door echoed across the garden. Not loudly, just a soft wooden creak that blended naturally with the breeze. The traveler opened his eyes. Far across the rose garden, a figure stepped quietly onto the stone path. She carried a small woven basket covered with a white linen cloth. Her wide straw hat sheltered her from the warm afternoon sun, while a light blue dress moved gently with every slow step. Clara smiled before the visitor came any closer. "I thought she might visit today." "You know her?" the traveler asked softly. Clara nodded. "Very well. She brings the sweetest strawberries in the valley." As the visitor reached the gazebo, she placed the basket gently upon the round wooden table. "My name is Lily," she said with a warm smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting your peaceful afternoon." Clara laughed quietly. "Peace has plenty of room. It always welcomes another friend." Lily lifted the linen cloth. Inside, fresh strawberries, blueberries, tiny raspberries, warm butter biscuits, a small jar of wildflower honey, and a glass bottle of homemade elderflower lemonade that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight. The traveler smiled. "I've begun to notice something. Everyone who visits this garden brings kindness." Lily's eyes twinkled. "My grandmother used to say, 'A basket is happiest when it's shared.'" Soon, 3 glasses rested upon the table. The lemonade was cool and lightly sweet. Fresh mint leaves floated gently across the surface. Tiny slices of lemon caught the sunlight like little pieces of gold. Outside the gazebo, butterflies drifted lazily among the roses. A pair of bees continued their quiet work, moving peacefully from blossom to blossom. No one hurried them. The flowers seemed perfectly willing to wait. Lily walked toward one of the climbing rose bushes. She gently touched a fully opened blossom. "I've been visiting this garden since I was a little girl. My grandfather planted this rose." The traveler admired the delicate petals. "It still looks beautiful." Clara smiled. "He always believed flowers remembered the people who cared for them." Lily nodded. "I think they do." Near the gazebo stood an old wooden swing hanging from a broad branch of an ancient oak tree. Its ropes were thick and carefully woven. A soft linen cushion rested upon the polished wooden seat. The traveler looked at it. "I don't think I've seen anyone use it." Clara laughed gently. "That's because everyone spends a few moments simply looking at it first. It's difficult to rush towards something that peaceful." Lily gave the swing the tiniest push. It began moving slowly, forward, back, forward, back. The gentle motion matched the rhythm of the warm afternoon breeze. A family of sparrows landed beneath the oak tree. Tiny beaks searched quietly through the grass for seeds that had fallen earlier in the day. Nearby, a squirrel carefully carried an acorn across the garden path before disappearing into the branches above. The traveler watched everything with quiet wonder. "I've never noticed how busy nature can be without ever feeling noisy." Clara nodded. "Everyone here seems to know exactly how much sound is enough." The afternoon sunlight became softer. Golden light filtered through the oak leaves, painting slow-moving patterns across the gazebo floor. The roses glowed warmly. Their colors seemed even richer beneath the gentle light. Lily opened a small notebook from her basket. Inside, every page held a tiny watercolor painting. A single flower, a bird, a butterfly, a teacup beside a window. The traveler carefully turned each page. "They're beautiful." Lily smiled. "I paint one peaceful thing every afternoon. Nothing grand, just one quiet moment worth remembering." The traveler looked around the garden once more. The greenhouse shimmered peacefully in the distance. The pond reflected drifting white clouds. The gazebo stood wrapped in climbing roses. The swing moved gently beneath the old oak tree. Everything felt wonderfully complete. Then, a soft breeze carried the distant fragrance of freshly baked bread across the garden. The traveler looked toward Clara. "Is there a bakery nearby?" She smiled knowingly. "There is. And tomorrow morning, if you'd like, we can follow that wonderful smell to the little cottage where every loaf is baked, slowly enough to fill the whole valley with comfort."
The first rays of morning sunlight slipped gently across the rose garden. The rain had completely disappeared during the night. In its place, a soft, golden glow rested upon every flower. Tiny drops of dew clung to the rose petals like little pearls, sparkling whenever the breeze wandered through the garden. The traveler stepped quietly onto the stone path. The air felt wonderfully fresh. He breathed deeply. The scent of blooming roses mixed with lavender, fresh mint, and the faint sweetness of jasmine climbing along the old greenhouse walls. Somewhere in the distance, he caught another fragrance. Fresh bread, warm butter, a hint of cinnamon. He smiled. "I think the bakery is already awake." Clara appeared at the greenhouse door carrying 2 small wicker baskets. One held a neatly folded linen cloth. The other contained a porcelain teapot wrapped carefully in a thick towel to keep it warm. "I thought we'd enjoy breakfast outdoors." The traveler laughed softly. "You seem to never leave home without tea." Clara smiled. "I've discovered that most beautiful mornings become even better with a warm cup." They followed the narrow garden path beyond the greenhouse. It wound gently through rows of blooming roses before disappearing beneath an avenue of old maple trees. Sunlight filtered through the branches in long golden beams. Birds greeted the morning from every direction. A robin, a blackbird, a pair of cheerful blue tits. Their songs blended together like a gentle welcome to the new day. No sound felt hurried. Every note seemed perfectly placed. Soon, the trees opened into a quiet meadow. Wildflowers covered the grass in every direction. White daisies, blue cornflowers, golden buttercups, tiny purple clover blossoms. Butterflies drifted lazily above them while bees continued their peaceful morning work. At the far end of the meadow stood a little stone cottage. Smoke curled gently from its chimney. Flower boxes overflowed beneath every window. A wooden sign swung softly above the front door. It simply read, "Morning Bread." Before they reached the cottage, the door opened. An elderly baker stepped outside wearing a flour-dusted apron. His silver beard was neatly trimmed, and his eyes smiled before his lips did. "Good morning, Clara. I had a feeling you might visit today." He looked toward the traveler. "And I see you've brought a new friend." The traveler removed his hat politely. "It's a pleasure to meet you." The baker nodded warmly. "My name is Thomas. You're just in time. The first loaves came out of the oven only a few minutes ago." As they stepped inside, a wave of comforting warmth surrounded them. The scent was unforgettable. Fresh bread, sweet cinnamon, melted butter, honey, and a faint hint of vanilla. Wooden shelves held rows of golden loaves cooling quietly. Round country bread, soft milk rolls, seeded sourdough, little honey buns sprinkled with oats. Nothing was rushed. Every loaf seemed to have been given exactly the time it needed. Thomas carefully lifted a fresh loaf onto a wooden board. Its crust crackled softly as it cooled. He smiled. "That's my favorite sound." The traveler listened closely. It was almost impossible to hear. Tiny little crackles, gentle, peaceful, like a fireplace whispering. "I've never noticed bread making a sound before." Thomas laughed. "It always has. We're just usually too busy to hear it." Near the bakery window stood a long wooden table. Fresh butter, strawberry jam, orange marmalade, wildflower honey. Small ceramic plates waited beside warm cups of chamomile tea. Outside, the meadow swayed gently beneath the morning breeze. The greenhouse shimmered in the distance beyond the roses. Everything felt connected. The flowers, the birds, the bread, the warm tea, the peaceful people. The traveler slowly spread honey on a slice of warm bread. Steam rose gently into the cool morning air. He closed his eyes for a moment. The first bite tasted simple, warm, comforting, familiar. It reminded him of mornings he had almost forgotten. Mornings without hurry, without clocks, without noise. Just warmth, kindness, and enough time to enjoy every peaceful moment. As breakfast came to a gentle close, Thomas looked toward a narrow path leading behind the cottage. Beyond it, an old apple orchard stretched across a quiet hillside. Hundreds of trees swayed softly beneath the morning sky. The baker smiled. If the day stays this beautiful, perhaps this afternoon we'll wander through the orchard, where every autumn breeze still carries the scent of apples, cinnamon, and quiet memories.
The little wooden shed stood quietly beneath the oldest apple trees in the orchard. Its faded green doors had softened under many seasons of sunshine and gentle rain. Climbing ivy wrapped itself around the stone chimney, while small pots of rosemary and thyme rested peacefully beside the entrance. The traveler paused for a moment. The air smelled different here. Warm apples, fresh cinnamon, cedar wood, and just the faintest hint of wood smoke drifting from the chimney. "It already feels cozy," he whispered. Clara smiled. "Wait until you step inside." She gently pushed open the old wooden door. It opened with the softest creak. Inside, the room glowed with warm amber light. A small stone fireplace crackled quietly, sending gentle waves of warmth through the cottage. Copper kettles hung above a polished wooden stove. Shelves were filled with glass bottles of homemade apple cider, jars of honey, cinnamon sticks tied with twine, and little baskets overflowing with dried herbs. Everything smelled wonderfully comforting. The traveler took a slow breath. "I think this may be the warmest room I've ever entered." Clara laughed softly. The fireplace enjoys making people feel at home. Near the window stood two deep wooden rocking chairs. Each held a thick wool blanket folded neatly across the back. Between them rested a tiny oak table. A lantern glowed softly beside a fresh apple pie that had only recently come out of the oven. Its golden crust shimmered gently beneath the warm light. Steam curled lazily toward the ceiling. The traveler smiled. "I don't think I've ever seen a pie that looked this peaceful." Clara carefully sliced two small pieces. "My grandmother always said, 'Pie tastes better when no one is watching the clock.'" Outside, the afternoon breeze stirred the apple branches. Golden leaves drifted slowly to the ground. Some landed upon the little stone path. Others floated quietly across the meadow before coming to rest beneath the old trees. The traveler watched through the window. They almost looked like tiny boats. Clara nodded. They're taking their time saying goodbye to summer. Beside the fireplace stood an old wooden shelf. Instead of books, it held dozens of small glass jars. Each contained dried apple blossoms gathered from different springs. A tiny handwritten label rested beneath each jar. "The first blossom of April, the sweetest spring morning, after the gentle rain." The traveler carefully lifted one jar. Even after many months, a delicate floral fragrance remained. "It's wonderful." Clara smiled. Some seasons leave behind beautiful memories. As the fire burned steadily, the room became wonderfully quiet. Only 3 sounds remained: the gentle crackle of the logs, the soft ticking of an old clock hanging above the fireplace, and the wind whispering through the orchard outside. None of them hurried the afternoon. They simply kept peaceful company. Clara poured 2 mugs of warm apple cider. Tiny curls of steam danced above the cups. A cinnamon stick rested inside each one.
The traveler wrapped both hands around the warm mug. The heat slowly spread through his fingers. He took one careful sip. Sweet apples, honey, a hint of cloves, just enough cinnamon. It tasted exactly like the room itself, warm, gentle, comforting. Near the far wall, a narrow staircase climbed quietly toward a tiny loft beneath the roof. A soft golden lantern glowed above the first step. The traveler noticed a little hand-painted sign hanging from the railing. It simply read, "Quiet Reading Loft." He looked towards Clara. "What's upstairs?" She smiled gently. "A little room where autumn evenings become even quieter. A place with soft blankets, old storybooks, and a round window where you can watch the stars appear above the sleeping orchard."
The narrow staircase climbed quietly into the little loft. Each wooden step carried the soft warmth of many peaceful evenings. The traveler placed one hand upon the smooth oak railing. It felt comforting, as though countless gentle hands had rested there before his. A small lantern hanging overhead filled the stairway with a warm golden glow. Its light danced softly across the wooden walls while the gentle crackle of the fireplace drifted up from below. Clara smiled. "The loft has always been my favorite room. It asks very little from its visitors, only that they slow down." When they reached the top, the traveler stopped for a quiet moment. The loft was simple, wonderfully simple. A sloping wooden ceiling followed the shape of the old roof. Thick beams crossed overhead, their rich oak darkened by time. A round window looked out across the sleeping orchard. Beyond it, hundreds of apple trees stretched toward the distant hills. The afternoon sun had begun its slow journey downward, bathing the valley in warm golden light. The leaves shimmered gently whenever the breeze wandered through the branches. "It feels as though the whole orchard is glowing." Clara nodded. "Autumn has a very gentle way of saying good evening." A deep window seat rested beneath the round glass. Soft linen cushions, a knitted blanket, two small pillows embroidered with tiny apple blossoms. Beside the seat stood a low wooden shelf holding only a handful of old books, nature journals, poetry, letters written many years ago. Nothing crowded the room. Everything had space to breathe. The traveler picked up one of the old journals. Its pages had yellowed softly with age. Inside, someone had written only a few lines on each page. "This morning the mist stayed until breakfast. The first apple fell without a sound. Tonight the stars arrived before the moon." He smiled. "They're such ordinary moments." Clara looked toward the orchard. "They became extraordinary because someone noticed them." Outside, the breeze carried another shower of golden leaves across the hillside. Some drifted slowly past the round window, others settled gently upon the winding path below. A pair of deer wandered quietly between the apple trees. They paused beneath an old branch before continuing their peaceful walk toward the forest. The traveler watched silently. "I don't think they even know we're here." Clara whispered, "That's the nicest way to meet wildlife." As evening slowly approached, the colors outside began to soften. Golden sunlight faded into gentle shades of amber and rose. The orchard looked warmer than ever. Down below, thin curls of smoke rose from Thomas's cottage chimney. The comforting smell of apple pie and cinnamon drifted softly through the slightly opened window. The traveler laughed quietly. "I think the whole valley smells like home." Clara smiled. Perhaps that's why so many people return. She reached into a small wooden cabinet beside the window. Inside rested a tiny telescope wrapped carefully in linen. Its polished brass reflected the last light of the afternoon. She placed it gently beside the traveler. "Have a look." He adjusted the little telescope toward the distant hills. Far away, he could see the greenhouse shining softly among the roses, the little gazebo hidden beneath climbing flowers, the peaceful pond where the swans still drifted together, even the winding meadow path they had followed that morning. Everything seemed beautifully connected, like chapters of one long, comforting story. The first evening star appeared above the hills, then another and another. The sky slowly deepened into soft shades of blue. Inside the loft, Clara lit a single beeswax candle. Its gentle flame flickered quietly beside the window, the room filled with warm amber light. Below, the fireplace continued its peaceful song. The traveler wrapped the knitted blanket around his shoulders. He closed his eyes for just a moment. The breeze whispered through the orchard. The fire crackled below. The candle glowed softly. Everything felt wonderfully calm. When he opened his eyes again, he realized something. He had arrived at the greenhouse looking for a place to rest. Instead, he had discovered something far more precious, a slower rhythm, a quieter heart, a way of noticing the small, beautiful moments that had always been there. Outside, the stars continued to appear one by one above the sleeping orchard. Inside, the little loft remained warm and peaceful, and somewhere below, the old kettle began to sing its gentle evening whistle, promising one final cup of warm tea before another quiet night settled gently over the rose garden.